I watched my sister's face turn white, and I'd never felt so satisfied. Just an hour before, I'd helped an old man on the bus. Sweet guy. We talked the whole ride. When I got off, he asked to walk with me to my sister's real estate office, said he might want to look at some houses. I had no idea who he really was. When Amy saw him standing in her lobby, she froze. The color drained from her face. Her hands started shaking. And this kind old stranger looked at my powerful, confident, always in control sister and said, "Hello, Amy. I believe you told your sister I was dead." Let me start from the beginning. My name is Kate Miller. I'm 31 years old, and for the past 3 years, I've worked as the office manager at Miller Real Estate in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, office manager sounds fancy until you realize it means I do everything nobody else wants to do. I answer phones, I file papers, I set up meetings, I clean the bathroom when the cleaning lady calls in sick. I make coffee, lots and lots of coffee. And I do all this for $38,000 a year, which in Phoenix barely covers my tiny apartment. My place is so small, I have to step outside just to change my mind. But hey, at least I can vacuum the whole thing without unplugging. That's called efficiency. My sister Amy owns the company. She's 38, 7 years older than me, and she lives a completely different life. She drives a white BMW. She owns a house worth $2.3 million. She wears fancy dresses and gets her hair done every 2 weeks at a salon that costs more than I spend on food in a month. And me? I drive a 2009 Honda that breaks down all the time. My mechanic knows my name. I think I'm paying for his kids' college. People always ask how two sisters can be so different. I used to wonder the same thing. Amy was always the smart one, the driven one, the one who had her life figured out. I was the little sister who tagged along, who needed help, who never quite got it together. At least that's what I believed. For 12 years, that's the story I told myself. Our parents died in a car crash when I was 19. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit them on their way home from dinner. One phone call and my whole world fell apart. I was a sophomore in college, barely an adult, and suddenly I was an orphan. Amy was 26 then. She moved in with me right away, said she'd take care of everything. The funeral, the lawyers, the money stuff, the insurance. She handled all of it. I was too broken to do anything except cry and try to remember how to breathe. A few weeks after the funeral, Amy sat me down and explained the money situation. She said our parents had more debt than anyone knew. The house had a big mortgage. There were credit cards, loans, things they'd hidden from us. After everything was paid, she said, my share of what was left was $15,000. $15,000. That's what my parents' whole lives added up to. Half of nothing much. I didn't question it. Why would I? This was my sister, the person who held me while I cried at the funeral, the person who made sure I ate, made sure I slept, made sure I didn't fall apart completely. She handled everything, so I didn't have to. She also told me gently that we had no family left. Our mom was an only child, and her parents died when we were kids. Our dad had been cut off from his father, a man named Thomas Miller. I was only 3 when they stopped talking. Something about Grandpa not liking our mom, a stupid fight that never got fixed. Dad changed his name to Mom's maiden name and cut all ties with his old family. Amy told me that Grandpa died a few years before our parents' crash. Heart attack. Dad never got to make peace with him. So that was it. No parents, no grandparents, no aunts or uncles. Just me and Amy alone in the world. I believed every word. I had no reason not to. After the $15,000 ran out, which didn't take long, I dropped out of college and started working. Retail jobs, waitressing, temp work, anything I could find. For 9 years, I barely got by. I moved from tiny apartment to tinier apartment. I ate ramen and store-brand cereal. I watched my sister's life get bigger and brighter, while mine stayed small and gray. Then 3 years ago, Amy offered me a job. She said her company was growing and she needed someone she could trust, someone to run the office, handle the day-to-day stuff. She'd pay me $38,000 a year. It wasn't much, but it was steady. I was so grateful. Finally, my sister was helping me. Finally, I'd have something stable. I didn't realize she was keeping me close for a reason. I didn't understand that the job was just another way to control me, to keep me dependent, to make sure I never looked too closely at anything. I was the coffee girl. That was my identity. 3 years of getting lattes and organizing files and saying yes, Amy, to everything. I even got promoted once, from coffee girl to coffee woman. Same coffee, slightly better title. That Tuesday morning, my old Honda died again, 3rd time that month. The mechanic said it would cost $900 to fix. I had $340 in my bank account. So I took the bus to work, stressed and running late, with no idea that the next 20 minutes would uncover 12 years of lies. No idea that helping an old man find his seat would change everything I thought I knew about my family. No idea that my sister had built her whole empire on theft, fraud, and betrayal. And I was about to watch it all fall apart. The 7:15 bus was crowded that morning. I found a seat near the middle and tried not to think about how I'd pay for car repairs. Maybe I could ask Amy for an advance on my paycheck again. She always made me feel guilty about it, always reminded me how lucky I was to have this job, but she usually said yes. The bus stopped and an elderly man climbed on. He was well-dressed, nice jacket, pressed pants, polished shoes, but he was struggling with the steps. He had a cane in one hand and a left bag in the other, and he couldn't manage both. Then, he dropped the cane. I jumped up without thinking, caught his arm before he could fall, and picked up the cane. He looked at me with bright blue eyes and smiled. "Well," he said, "that's the most excitement I've had all week. Thank you, young lady." I helped him to my seat, the only empty one nearby, and told him it was no problem. I'd stand for the rest of the ride. It was only 15 more minutes. He introduced himself as Tom, said he was visiting the area, thinking about real estate, maybe downsizing from his current place. He asked what I did for work. I told him I worked at a real estate office. Complained a little about my boss being demanding. Nothing too specific, just the usual venting you do with strangers you'll never see again. When I mentioned the name of the company, Miller Real Estate, something flickered in his eyes for just a second. I didn't think much of it. We chatted for the rest of the ride. He asked about my life, my job, my plans. Not in a nosy way, but like he genuinely cared. He made me laugh with a joke about how bus drivers must go to a special school to learn how to hit every single pothole. I remember thinking, this is what a grandpa should be like. Warm, funny, interested. I never had that. Or so I believed. When we reached my stop, Tom asked if he could walk with me. Said maybe he'd look at some listings, get a feel for the area. I said, sure, why not? He seemed harmless. Sweet, even. We walked 2 blocks to the office, a sleek, modern building with big glass windows and Miller Real Estate in silver letters above the door. Amy's pride and joy. Inside, I offered Tom some coffee and asked him to wait in the front area. Amy was in her back office on a phone call. I could hear her voice through the door, that smooth, confident tone she used with clients. A few minutes later, she finished her call and walked out. Fancy dress, perfect hair, heels that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She had her professional smile ready, the one she used on rich clients. Then she saw Tom, and she froze. I'd known my sister my whole life. I'd seen her handle angry clients, tough talks, stressful situations. I'd never, not once, seen her lose her cool. But in that moment, the color drained from her face. Her hand shot out and grabbed the doorframe like she might fall over. Her smile vanished. Tom stood up slowly. He straightened his jacket, looked at her calmly, and said, "Hello, Amy. I believe you told your sister I was dead." I laughed. It was such a strange thing to say that I thought I'd misheard him. "Amy, who is this man? What is he talking about?" Tom turned to me and his eyes were soft but sad. "My name is Thomas Miller. I'm your grandfather, Kate." The room spun. I felt like someone had pulled the floor out from under me. "That's impossible," I said. "Our grandfather died years ago, before our parents' crash. Amy told me." "Is that what she told you?" Tom's gaze moved back to my sister. "Interesting, because she told me that you died in the same crash that killed your parents 12 years ago." I looked at Amy, waiting for her to explain, to laugh, to say this was some kind of mistake. She didn't say anything. Her face was blank, but I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. She was figuring out how to spin this. Tom continued, his voice steady and calm. "For 12 years, I mourned you, Kate. I thought I lost my son and both my granddaughters in one terrible night. I almost didn't survive that grief." He paused. "Then, 3 months ago, I saw your photo on this company's website. The granddaughter I'd been mourning, alive, working for her sister." My brain couldn't process what he was saying. None of it made sense. "Amy," my voice cracked, "what is he talking about?" My sister finally moved. She took a breath, put on that fake professional smile, and said, "Grandpa Tom, you're confused. There's been some kind of mistake. Let me explain." "I'm not confused." Tom's voice went cold. Not angry, just cold. "I hired a private investigator, Amy. I know exactly what you've done to me, to your sister, to everyone who ever trusted you." He reached into his leather bag and pulled out a thick folder. "Should we talk about what's in here, or would you prefer I go straight to the police?" My morning coffee was definitely not strong enough for this conversation. Amy's smile didn't waver, but her hands were shaking. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my sister's eyes, and I realized whatever was in that folder was going to change everything. Tom opened the folder right there in the front area. Papers, photos, a thick report with a private investigator's logo on the cover. He explained how he found me. 3 months ago, he was browsing real estate websites, thinking about selling his house in Sedona and moving somewhere smaller. He clicked on Miller Real Estate because the name caught his attention. Miller was his son's married name, the name he took when he married our mom and cut ties from his old family. On the About Us page, he saw my photo, Kate Miller, office manager. His heart stopped. The granddaughter he'd been mourning for 12 years, alive, working for her sister. He hired a private investigator that same day. What the investigator found was worse than Tom imagined. For 12 years, Amy had been lying to both of us. She told Tom I died in the crash. She was in the back seat. She didn't make it. She told me Tom died years before the crash. Heart attack. Dad never made peace with him. 2 lies, perfectly designed to keep us apart forever. But that wasn't even the worst part. For 8 years, Amy had been visiting Tom regularly at his retirement community in Sedona. She played the role of the devoted, loving, only surviving granddaughter. She told him she worked in financial consulting, never mentioned real estate, never mentioned her company, never mentioned me. She kept her 2 worlds completely separate, so this moment would never happen. Tom looked at me with sadness in his eyes. "She told me you were dead, Kate, and I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my granddaughter. She visited me, brought me gifts, called me on holidays. I thought she was all I had left." I felt sick. "She's been setting herself up to inherit everything," Tom continued. Over 8 years, she's gotten more than $200,000 in gifts from me. She convinced me to change my will twice. She's the only one who gets anything now, and she was pushing me to sign over power of attorney next month. His voice was steady, but I could see the pain underneath. This man had grieved for 12 years, thinking his whole family was gone, and the person he trusted most had been playing him the entire time. Tom turned to me. "Kate, I need to ask you something. What did you get from your parents' estate?" The question caught me off guard. $15,000. Amy said there was a lot of debt, credit cards, the mortgage, things our parents had hidden. She said that was my share. Tom closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, there was something hard in his expression. Anger, maybe, or disgust. "Your father had a life insurance policy worth $850,000. Your parents' house was sold for $420,000. Their investments totaled over $340,000. He let those numbers sink in. The estate was worth more than $1.6 million. Kate, your share should have been over $800,000. I couldn't breathe. $800,000? I should have had $800,000. Instead, I got $15,000, and I spent the last 12 years barely surviving, working low-wage jobs, living in tiny apartments, eating cheap food, driving a car that broke down every month, grateful when my sister finally helped me with a job that paid me less than half what I was worth. I looked at Amy. She was still standing there, frozen, her mask cracking with every word Tom spoke. "You stole from me," I whispered. "I was 19 years old. Our parents had just died. I trusted you with everything, and you stole $800,000 from me." Amy opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. That night, I went home to my tiny apartment and did something I should have done 12 years ago. I dug out a box I'd kept in the back of my closet, my parents' personal papers. Amy had given it to me after the funeral, said it was just sentimental stuff, nothing important. I'd never gone through it carefully. Too painful. Now, 12 years later, I sat on my apartment floor and read every word. Our father wrote it before a business trip, the trip where the crash happened. It was meant to be opened in case something happens to us. The letter listed everything. Life insurance, $850,000. House value, $420,000. Investments, $340,000. The final line said, "To be split equally between our beloved daughters, Amy and Kate. We love you both more than words can say." Split equally. My share should have been over $800,000. I could have paid for college. I could have bought a house. I could have built a life. Instead, I got $15,000 and a decade of struggling while my sister built an empire on money she stole from me. I sat there until 2 in the morning, surrounded by papers I'd never bothered to read, staring at numbers that should have been mine. The math was simple. That missing money could have bought approximately 47,000 lattes, or, a life. Tom was right about something else. He said he had resources, a good lawyer, and he wanted to help me get justice. For the first time in 12 years, someone was on my side, someone who could actually fight back. I picked up my phone and called him. "I found the letter," I said. "I'm ready." Tom's lawyer was a woman named Patricia Holt, mid-50s, silver hair, sharp eyes, and absolutely no patience for fraud. She'd spent 30 years handling estate cases in Arizona, and she'd seen every trick in the book. When she reviewed my papers, she didn't sugarcoat anything. "Your sister is a piece of work," she said, flipping through the pages. "I've seen siblings fight over a couch in court, but this level of fraud, this is impressively terrible." Patricia filed requests for the official estate documents from the county. What came back was worse than any of us expected. 12 years ago, when I was 20 years old and barely functioning from grief, Amy filed a petition with the court. She claimed I was mentally unfit due to severe grief and trauma. She said I couldn't make decisions for myself. She presented documents with my signature, giving her full control of our parents' estate. I never signed those documents. I never even saw them. Amy forged my signature. She lied to a court. She stole everything and left me with scraps. Patricia traced the money, every dollar of it. The life insurance payout, $850,000, went into an account Amy controlled. She used it to pay off our parents' actual debts, which were small. A small mortgage, a few credit cards, maybe $80,000 total. The rest she kept. The house sale brought in $420,000. Our parents' investments added another $340,000. After the real debts were paid, Amy walked away with approximately $1.5 million. She gave me $15,000 and told me that was my share. With that stolen money, she launched Miller Real Estate. The startup casts, the first office lease, the marketing, the fancy website, all paid for with my inheritance. Every commission she earned, every property she sold, every dollar of profit, all of it grew from stolen money. The BMW? Bought with money that should have been mine. The $2.3 million house? Same thing. The fancy clothes, the expensive haircuts, the luxury vacations I saw on her social media, all of it built on fraud. And while she was living that life, I was working double shifts at a diner, counting pennies, wondering why I couldn't get ahead no matter how hard I tried. Then she offered me a job, her generous big sister act. $38,000 a year to work 60 hours a week getting her coffee and organizing her files. She kept me close, kept me poor, kept me grateful. Patricia also looked into the situation with Tom. What she found added another layer of crime. Over 8 years, Amy had taken more than $200,000 from our grandfather in gifts. She convinced him to change his will twice, making herself the only beneficiary of his $4 million estate. She was weeks away from getting him to sign power of attorney, which would have given her complete control over his finances. This wasn't just theft from me. This was elder financial abuse, a serious crime in Arizona. Patricia laid out our options. We could file a civil lawsuit and try to get the money back through the courts. That would take years and cost a fortune with no guarantee of success. Or we could go to the police, present the evidence, let the criminal justice system handle it. If we do this right, Patricia said, she won't just lose the money, she'll lose everything. Tom and I agreed. We wanted justice, not just money. But Patricia warned us we needed to be smart. We had to gather every piece of evidence before making a move. Bank records, property deeds, forged signatures, witness statements. We needed an airtight case. 3 weeks, Patricia said. Give me 3 weeks to put this together. And in the meantime, act normal. Don't let her suspect anything. 3 weeks. 21 days of pretending everything was fine. I went to work every morning, I smiled at Amy, I got her coffee, I said, "Yes, Amy," and "Right away, Amy," to every demand. Every interaction felt like swallowing broken glass. But I did it. I played the role of the grateful little sister, the loyal employee, the person who had no idea she'd been robbed. At night, I met with Tom and Patricia. We reviewed documents, we tracked bank transfers, we built our case piece by piece. I learned things about my sister I never knew. She had a business partner named Robert King, a wealthy investor who provided startup money when she launched the company. He was a silent partner, meaning he put in money but let Amy handle all the operations. He trusted her completely, never looked at the books, never questioned her, never suspected anything. I wondered what he would think when the truth came out. Probably not great things. I also learned that Amy was careful about keeping her two worlds separate. She never mentioned Miller Real Estate to Tom, never talked about her business, her office, her employees. She told Tom she worked in financial consulting and kept it vague. That's why Tom never Googled her company. That's why he never stumbled across my photo until that random day 3 months ago. She had built a wall between her lies, and she thought it would hold forever. It didn't. On the last day of our 3-week preparation, Patricia called me with news. "We're ready," she said. "I'm filing the criminal complaint tomorrow morning. By tomorrow afternoon, your sister's life is going to change dramatically." That night, I lay awake in my tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, everything would be different. Tomorrow, the sister who stole 12 years of my life would finally face consequences. I thought about all the coffee I'd made her, hundreds of cups over 3 years, thousands of yes Amy's, a lifetime of being the lesser sister, the struggling one, the one who should be grateful for whatever scraps she got. I smiled in the darkness. At least I never made her coffee well. Lots of accidental decaf, lots of slightly burned pots. It was petty, but it was something. Tomorrow, I'd have something much better than bad coffee. Tomorrow, I'd have justice. The detectives arrived at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I remember the exact time because I kept staring at the clock, waiting, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone in the office could hear it. 2 men in suits walked through the front door of Miller Real Estate. They didn't look like clients. They looked exactly like what they were. "We're looking for Amy Miller," one of them said, showing his badge. I pointed toward the back office, trying to keep my hand from shaking. "She's in there." Amy came out a moment later, her professional smile already in place. She was wearing a cream-colored designer dress and heels that probably cost more than my car repairs. She looked perfect, as always. "Good afternoon, officers. How can I help you?" "Amy Miller, you are arrested. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Her smile vanished. The detective kept reading her rights as his partner pulled out handcuffs. I watched them click around my sister's wrists, the same hands that wore diamond bracelets and expensive watches, the same hands that signed forged documents with my name. Charges include forgery, fraud, theft by deception, and elder financial abuse. You'll be taken to the county jail for processing. Amy's head snapped toward me. Her eyes were wild, furious, desperate. "You did this?" she hissed. "After everything I did for you. I gave you a job. I took care of you. I was there for you when Mom and Dad died, and this is how you repay me?" I didn't say anything. I just watched. "You'd be nothing without me," she screamed as they walked her toward the door. The door closed behind me. The office was silent. The other 2 agents who worked there, people who had witnessed the whole thing, stared at me with wide eyes. I sat down at my desk, took a deep breath, and felt something I hadn't felt in 12 years. Peace. But the story didn't end with that arrest. That was just the beginning. News travels fast in Phoenix real estate circles. By the next morning, everyone knew Amy Miller, rising star of luxury real estate, had been arrested for fraud. The phone started ringing immediately, but not with new clients. These were existing clients, panicked, demanding to know if their money was safe. Robert King, Amy's silent partner, was blindsided. He'd invested $200,000 in the company 10 years ago and trusted Amy to run everything. He never looked at the books, never questioned her, never suspected anything. Now his investment was in danger, and he needed to know how bad the damage was. He hired a forensic accountant to review the company's finances. What the accountant found made the situation 100 times worse. Amy hadn't just been stealing from me and Tom, she'd been stealing from the company too, for years. Fake expense reports totaling $180,000, payments to fake companies that didn't actually exist, client money that had gone missing and was never properly tracked. Robert was furious, not just because of the money, but because if authorities connected him to the fraud, he could go down too. He was a partner after all. His name was on the paperwork. His lawyer gave him two options. Option 1, stay quiet, hope for the best, and potentially face charges as an accomplice. Option 2, cooperate fully with authorities, hand over everything, and hope for immunity. Robert chose survival. He brought every bank record, every suspicious transaction, every questionable contract to the FBI. He told them everything he knew, which wasn't much, but it was enough to open a federal investigation. Wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. The case exploded. FBI forensic accountants dug through 10 years of Amy's business records. What they found was staggering. She had defrauded at least 11 other victims over the course of her career. Elderly clients who trusted her to handle their home sales and never saw all the money they were owed. First-time homebuyers who lost deposits on deals that fell through for suspicious reasons. People who thought they were working with a professional and never realized they were being robbed. Each new victim added more charges, each new charge added more years to her potential sentence. Meanwhile, Amy sat in a cell watching her empire collapse. Her assets were frozen pending investigation. The $2.3 million house seized. The white BMW seized. The bank accounts filled with stolen money frozen. Her real estate license was suspended immediately. Her reputation, the thing she valued most in the world, was destroyed overnight. Former clients publicly distanced themselves from her. Business contacts pretended they'd never met her. Friends stopped returning calls. I drove past her house one day just to see it. There was a federal seizure notice on the front door. The BMW was being loaded onto a tow truck. I watched them drive it away and thought, guess she should have been nicer to the coffee girl. The federal trial lasted 3 weeks. I sat in that courtroom every single day, watching my sister try to charm the jury the way she'd charmed everyone else her whole life. But this time, there was no one left to fool. The evidence was overwhelming. The documents were clear. 11 victims testified about money they'd lost. Tom testified about the 8 years of manipulation, and I testified about waking up as a grieving 19-year-old and trusting my sister to handle everything, never knowing she was stealing my entire future. When the jury foreman stood up to read the verdict, I watched Amy's face. For the first time in her life, she looked scared. Guilty. 23 counts. Federal wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. State charges for forgery, theft, and elder financial abuse. The judge looked at my sister with no sympathy in his eyes. He said, "Miss Miller, you systematically betrayed every person who ever trusted you. You stole from grieving family members. You manipulated an elderly man who believed he was your only family. You defrauded clients who put their life savings in your hands. You represent the worst kind of predator, one who hides behind family and professionalism while destroying lives." He sentenced her to 27 years in federal prison. Amy is 38 years old. She'll be 65 before she's eligible for parole, the same age our father was when he died. Somehow, that felt right. The court ordered full restitution to all victims. Every asset Amy had accumulated, the house, the cars, the jewelry, the investment accounts, was sold and distributed. I received my rightful inheritance, the principal amount I should have gotten 12 years ago, plus interest. In total, approximately $940,000. Not a fortune by Phoenix standards, but enough to change my life. Tom got his $200,000 back. His will was invalidated, restored to whatever he wants it to be now. He told me he's rewriting it again, but he won't tell me what's in it, says it's bad luck to discuss these things. The 11 other victims, elderly clients, young families, people who trusted the wrong person, received their money too. For some of them, it was life-changing. A retired teacher got back the $40,000 she'd lost on a home sale gone wrong. A young couple recovered their deposit for a house they never got to buy. Justice isn't always about revenge. Sometimes it's about making things right. After the trial, I quit my job. Obviously. I paid off every debt I'd accumulated over 12 years of barely surviving. I went back to school, night classes, business degree on my own terms and my own schedule. I started a small property management company, ethical, transparent, everything my sister's business wasn't. I named it Miller Properties, honoring the grandfather I almost never knew existed. It's not a big company, just me and 2 employees managing a handful of rental properties around Phoenix, but it's mine, built with my own money, my own work, my own name. And yeah, I finally retired the 2009 Honda that had been breaking down for years. I didn't buy a BMW, I bought a Subaru Outback. Reliable, practical, real. Every time I start the engine and it actually works on the first try, I smile. Tom and I built a real relationship. Sunday dinners at his place in Sedona, phone calls twice a week. He's 79 now, and he knows time is precious. He doesn't try to replace the lost years. We can't get those back, but we can have whatever time is left, and that's what we're doing. One Sunday, he told me something I'll never forget. We were sitting on his porch watching the sunset turn the red rocks orange and gold. "Your father would be so proud of you," he said quietly. "I know I am." I cried. It was the first time anyone had said that in 12 years. 6 months after the sentencing, I received a letter from a federal prison in Phoenix, Amy's handwriting on the envelope. I opened it, even though I probably shouldn't. She wanted money for commissary, for phone calls, for legal fees to file another appeal. She said she was sorry. She said she made mistakes. She said I was the only family she had left. I read the letter once, then I threw it in the trash. Some doors once closed, stay closed. A year after the trial, I was sitting in my new office, small, modest, completely mine, when my assistant buzzed the intercom. "There's a phone call from a correctional facility. Will you accept the charges?" I thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. "No," I said. "I won't." I hung up and got back to work building something real, something honest, something that's finally, truly mine. Some people build their whole lives on lies, but here's what I learned. Lies have an expiration date. The truth finds a way out, even if it takes 12 years, even if it arrives disguised as a stranger on a city bus who needs help finding a seat. Be kind anyway. You never know who's watching or who's been waiting 12 years to find you.